My name is Tom Mesereau. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I was Michael Jackson's lead criminal defense counsel in his criminal trial in the year 2005. When Neverland was raided by 70 Santa Barbara County sheriffs in November of 2003, I was returning to Los Angeles from a vacation in Northern California. And at that time, I was defending actor Robert Blake in his homicide case, which was very high profile, and we were getting ready for the trial to start in February of 2004. My cell phone had been off for about 10 days. I turned it on, and within a minute, I was getting calls. Have you heard about the raid on Neverland Ranch? And I said I had not. And then I started getting calls from people with Michael in Las Vegas saying he wanted to meet me. Would I jump on a plane and fly out to meet him? And I thought about it, and my first thought was, who can turn down Michael Jackson? I'd never met him before. I had known his brother Randy for many years, but I'd never met Michael. And I thought about it, and I realized I could not serve two masters at once in cases this big, so I declined to fly to Las Vegas. And then people started calling me in shock, saying, how could you possibly not do this? This would be the biggest case of your career. And I said, it would, except I'm committed to the defense of Mr. Blake in his homicide case, and I have to spend full time on that. So I declined. In February of 2004, we started picking a jury in the Robert Blake murder case, and he and I had a falling out, so I withdrew from the case. Within a few weeks, Randy Jackson called me and said, Tom, we've always wanted you. Are you available now? And I said, yes, I am. So he arranged for me to fly to Florida to meet Michael Jackson, and I met with Michael and other people, including Randy. I was asked a lot of questions about who I was and my background and why I liked criminal law and who I liked to defend, and they wanted to know why I went to an African American church in South Central Los Angeles and why I went into the Deep South every year and defended a death penalty case for free, and the civil rights organizations I was involved in the inner city, and they want to know everything about me. So I was being asked all these questions while Michael sat in the background silent. He was just almost looking through me. So I didn't get a good feel for him because he hardly said a word, except that something very kind and nice about him was evident. I flew back, and very quickly Randy called me and said he and Michael had talked to Johnny Cochran, and Johnny Cochran had said I was the one that could win the case, and which was very flattering to me because I just revered Johnny Cochran. I thought he was a fabulous lawyer. And I agreed to be his lawyer. Well, first of all, a lot of people close to me said, don't take it. They said, you cannot win the case, that there was his prior accuser in the early 90s. There are other accusers they're going to bring in. The charges are among the most ugly charges you can bring against anyone in the United States. And I was told that the publicity would be awful, that it couldn't be won, and if I became his lead criminal defense lawyer and lost the case, that the rest of my life would be defined by that loss, that everywhere I went in the world, Jackson fans and people who loved Michael would be looking at me saying he's the one who sent him to prison where he died. So people were strongly warning me, don't take this, it will define the rest of your career, it's not worth it. And I thought about it, and I just said to myself, this is who I am, I'm a criminal defense lawyer, I defend difficult cases. I don't just blindly accept what other people tell me the truth is. I want to find out myself. And I walked into this case like every other case. I didn't believe either side. I wanted to just do my own research, do my own interviews, see what I felt like when I talked to Michael, when I talked to others, see what the evidence looked like to me, see what the other side's motives looked like to me. And it didn't take me long to reach a very firm conclusion that Michael Jackson was not guilty of any of these awful charges.
A mother's love, a mother's strength, a mother's story. Michael, A Mother's Story. The second edition of Mrs. Jackson's most celebrated memoir is now available on Amazon.
Most people misunderstood Michael because of the media. I just want them to know what kind of person Michael was.
This newest edition of Michael, A Mother's Story is so much more than just a memoir. You'll discover hundreds of rare family photos from her personal album and untold stories. That's right, Mrs. Jackson is opening up and sharing all the truths about the most important moments in Michael's life. She's revealing her most intimate thoughts, and she is not holding back. From the family's humble beginnings to superstardom, Mrs. Jackson reflects on what it took to raise the most famous family in entertainment. This is a story of family, of resilience, and of love. Michael, A Mother's Story, the second edition of Mrs. Jackson's most celebrated memoir, is now available on Amazon. Check the link in the description to order your copy today.
Well, I was trying to study him, I think just like he was trying to study me. And I was just trying to get a feel for the human being. And so I asked him very basic questions about his life, about his view of the world, about how he likes to live, about his, of course, his views towards children. And I asked him about a number of things and just began to say to myself, I don't see how this guy could commit crimes like this. It just doesn't make any sense. But nevertheless, I still withheld my opinion and my judgment till I had gotten to know him better and looked at the evidence. And I woke up in the middle of the night one day and I said, he didn't do this. This is just absurd. This is ridiculous. He's not capable of this. This is just a trumped up case where all of these people want to profit personally from seeing him convicted. The prosecutors wanted to be movie stars. The sheriffs wanted to be movie stars. The media wanted a big fall from grace. It would just, feed their desire for revenue and ratings for years and years. I like to study people. I listen to them and I feel them. I intuit them. And the more I spoke with him, and I asked him questions that had many purposes behind the questions. One of them being to just see how he articulated, how he responded, how he dealt with difficult questions, painful questions, and also just to feel the person throughout. And I just began to quickly say to myself, how could this guy possibly be the one they're charging with 10 serious felony counts? These are evil, horrible allegations. And the more time I spent with him, I said, he's incapable of doing this. It just doesn't make any sense. And he didn't respond like a guilty person would respond. I mean, I've defended a lot of people in my career in all sorts of situations. And I have a pretty good sense for when somebody might be shading the truth or lying or trying to, bamboozle me. Well, first of all, as a criminal defense lawyer, I get into a case and I don't believe anybody on either side. I take my time to patiently study the client, feel the client, look at who the witnesses are, look at the evidence, try and size up the prosecution and the police and the DA investigators, and just try and sit back and say, where is everybody coming from? What are their motives? What do they have? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And I didn't treat Michael any differently than any other client I've ever defended. I took my time to question him about his life, about these allegations, about his family, about his view of the world. I spent time with him trying to study him and feel him, listen to how he responded to difficult questions. And it didn't take me long to realize that this man was incapable of committing the kinds of crimes they were alleging. I mean, remember how serious these charges were. These are horrific, serious charges. And the more time I spent with him, the more I became absolutely convinced this man could never have committed these crimes. He couldn't even have imagined committing them. And I began to look at the prosecutors and try and size them up. They were on top of the world. They thought they were going to be movie stars. This was going to be the biggest media trial in American history. There were going to be more media here than O.J. Simpson and Scott Peterson combined, because Michael Jackson was the biggest celebrity in the world. So they were walking on air. They thought they were going to be movie stars, convict him, write books, retire. I looked at the sheriffs who were doing the investigative work. They had a big glow in their eye, like they were going to be movie stars. And I started to step back and look at the media's motives, and they were just salivating over seeing the biggest name in the world destroyed. It would make great copy for them, generate great revenues, great ratings. And I realized I almost didn't trust anybody involved in this whole situation. I realized that we just had a battle in front of us, but we were on the right side. When you know you're on the right side, it has two effects on you. One, you have a certain moral strength behind you that helps you just fly through the case because you know you're in the right. But it also creates burdens, because it's an old saying in the criminal defense world, dear God, whatever you do, don't give me an innocent person to defend, because the pressures of defending an innocent person, particularly when they're coming at you like these people were, it's very, very stressful, very burdensome. But I realized he was innocent. I realized he was a very kind, good, gentle person. I realized he never should have been in this position, and it was a real honor and privilege to be chosen as his lead criminal defense lawyer. I think there are a lot of reasons why Michael Jackson ended up charged with these false crimes. First of all, he was the biggest target in the world. He was the greatest genius on the planet. He was one of the wealthiest men on the planet. And along with being a creative, musical genius, and along with being perceived as having great wealth, he was simultaneously perceived as being childlike and naive, as someone you could easily go after in a legal setting and profit from. I think when he settled the case in 1993 for reportedly close to $20 million, I think that sent a message to a lot of the con artists who tried to flock around him. Why work if you can sue Michael Jackson? Why put up with life struggles when you can sue this wealthy man? He won't want to go to court. He'll pay you millions. You'll be able to retire easily and safely. It beats working. And I think you put all of these qualities together, and Michael Jackson was the biggest target walking the earth. Well, I didn't have to prepare Michael Jackson for dealing with the spotlight. He was raised in the spotlight. He was comfortable in the spotlight. What I had to do with him was teach him about the criminal justice system. Before I got in the case, I would watch the TV reporting on the Michael Jackson case, and I was kind of appalled. I don't think anybody had really instructed him what was effective and what was not. So I had to certainly instruct Michael that you have to show respect at all times, even for a system that doesn't seem to be treating you well. You have to be humble at all times, even when you're very upset at what falsities are being thrown at you. And you have to listen to your attorney, who you hope has your best interests in mind, and I believe I had his best interests in mind at all times. I didn't like what I saw before I became his lawyer. I didn't like him being on the SUV. I felt that he was not properly guided about how to conduct himself and what was effective and what was not. And I also told him that while you might think that those who watch the media are going to affect the outcome, the reality is that while you do want to get good public relations, it's 13 people that are going to decide your fate, 12 jurors and a judge. They are the most important people in your life at that point. And he did follow my advice. Now, unfortunately, because Michael was the biggest target on the planet, all kinds of people were trying to get his ear, trying to tell him how to behave, when to smile, what to wear. And I told him, be yourself at all times. The clothes you wear should be the clothes you normally wear. Okay, you're Michael Jackson. People will know if you're putting on a phony air, and people will know if you're not. And I wanted him to just be himself, be proud of it, and take it one day at a time. And don't be so concerned about the media, because they're not going to decide your fate. They want you to think they're going to decide your fate, but they're not going to. This is one of the most disgraceful chapters in the history of the worldwide media. Every sinister effort was made to see Michael Jackson convicted. Every dishonest, poisonous way to try and influence the jury and get a conviction was done by the media. It was a feeding frenzy. It was malicious. It was evil. It was disturbing. And fortunately, they failed in their effort to see an innocent person convicted. They failed, and they failed miserably. And I was very proud to be part of their failure. I learned very quickly not to trust the media in this case. There were a few exceptions. There were a couple of older journalists who were very professional and ethical, but I learned that in general, this was a feeding frenzy that I'd never seen before. This was a nonstop, 24-hour effort to sully and destroy Michael Jackson's reputation, and they hoped to influence the jury in their deliberations. The media wanted a conviction. I was told after the trial that I had cost the worldwide media billions of dollars by acquitting Michael Jackson on every single charge, and it just was a disgrace. I had many talks with Michael at 3, 4 in the morning. He also would call my co-counsel, Susan Yu. And we'd have talks about the case, about his family, whatever he wanted to talk about. I told him what his mother told him. God was with him. The truth would come out, and that it was coming out bit by bit, day by day. I felt that we were destroying their case, destroying their witnesses, showing what the truth really was. But even still, you never know what a jury of strangers will do. And that type of stress and that kind of pressure was eating away at Michael Jackson. He grew thinner. He grew more and more tired around his eyes. He had trouble sleeping. He was terrified about what happened to his children. And, he was a person who had trouble trusting any adult. So many people had sued him, stolen from him, misled him, deceived him, made him think they were his friends when they weren't. That, he would even call me and say, please, I know people are going to try and corrupt you. They want to see me go down. There's too much money involved. They're going to try and pay you, Tom. He said that to Susan Yu, my co-counsel, also. I know they're going to try and corrupt you. You're doing too well. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm an entertainer and I'm a smart guy, and I see what you're doing to these witnesses. And he said to me, they've got to be reaching out to you. They don't want us to win. And I repeatedly told Michael, nobody's paying me off. Nobody's buying me. Nobody's corrupting me. I'm here till the end, and we're going to win this. I couldn't guarantee it because I'm not God, but I told him that I thought we were on a very good track. He had to just take things one day at a time. I told him when he woke up every morning to keep his eyes closed and visualize all the wonderful things that had happened in his life. And indeed, he had had experiences and gifts and accomplishments and experiences that no other human being has. I said, inventory all of them. Thank God for them, for your children, for your family, and ask God just to get you through each day. And he followed my advice. But it was a very difficult process. The trial was almost 5 months long. We were in court 5 days a week. We didn't have a lunch break during those court days. And I'm sure he came home in the evening and probably people were watching television and all the false, malicious reporting about what really had happened. And I'm sure it demoralized him and horrified him. But nevertheless, I told him he had to get through each day, one at a time. Don't think beyond the day. Just ask God to get him through that day. And fortunately, we prevailed.
So when he called you and said they are going to corrupt, who is he talking about?
I don't want to name the names. I don't want to say that. But he was convinced that people would reach out and try and pay me and pay my co-counsel, Susan Yu, to throw the case, to make sure he lost. And he thought that all kinds of riches and all kinds of benefits would come to me if I made sure he didn't win. And I had to tell him repeatedly, Michael, they're not even going to try it with me. They're dealing with the wrong guy if they try to. We're here to win this case. I don't care who it offends. I don't care who it upsets. I don't care what business interests are disappointed. We're here to win because you are absolutely innocent.
A mother's love, a mother's strength, a mother's story. Michael, A Mother's Story. The second edition of Mrs. Jackson's most celebrated memoir is now available on Amazon.
Most people misunderstood Michael because of the media. I just want them to know what kind of person Michael was.
This newest edition of Michael, A Mother's Story is so much more than just a memoir. You'll discover hundreds of rare family photos from her personal album and untold stories. That's right, Mrs. Jackson is opening up and sharing all the truths about the most important moments in Michael's life. She's revealing her most intimate thoughts, and she is not holding back. From the family's humble beginnings to superstardom, Mrs. Jackson reflects on what it took to raise the most famous family in entertainment. This is a story of family, of resilience, and of love. Michael, A Mother's Story, the second edition of Mrs. Jackson's most celebrated memoir, is now available on Amazon. Check the link in the description to order your copy today.